Welcome, everybody, to the, thank goodness it is Friday edition of Just the News and No Nice. I'm your host, Amanda Head, joining you from Los Angeles, California tonight, my co-host and editor-in-chief of Just the News. John Solomon is out on assignment tonight, but before we get into all of the news, I have to remind you that tonight, this show is brought to you by Wired to Fish Coffee. Wired to Fish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News, and you can go right now to wiredtofishcoffee.com and get a wonderful 10% discount on all of their great coffee and products. All right, everybody, I want to get to some more updates on the devastating fires that are taking place here all across Los Angeles, really, because the blame game has already started among the officials on the ground today. And let me just say, there's plenty of blame to go around. And a lot of that discussion has focused on California Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. But Los Angeles Fire Chief Kristen Crowley has been scrutinized more and more as of lately, and she finally spoke out about it today in a pretty revealing interview. She was asked directly if the city of Los Angeles failed her in doing her duty to protect the residents of Los Angeles. Here is how she answered.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say justifiably what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job, and I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
Woo! Pretty shocking coming from the fire chief while these blazes are still not contained, but it does seem like a pretty truthful answer, at least from her perspective. And remember, she sent out that company-wide or that agency-wide memo earlier in December saying, hey guys, we need more. And she was also asked about the Santa Ynez Reservoir, which serves the Pacific Palisades neighborhood, the place where these blazes originated. And it was empty at the time of the fires, and the fire hydrants having no running water when firefighters tried to use them. And again, she gave a pretty revealing answer.
My stance on this is when a firefighter comes up to a hydrant, we expect there's going to be water. We don't control the water supply. Our firefighters are there to protect lives and property and to make sure that we're properly trained and equipped. That's my position on this. So if there's no water, I don't know how the water gets to the hydrants. Please defer that to DWP or whomever controls that part. But I can tell you the resiliency of our firefighters, if there's no water, they're going to go find water. They're going to figure out a way to do the best they can with what they've got in a very dynamic situation.
And I know you expressed concerns that those DWP hydrants would not be inspected thoroughly because of the budget cuts.
That is something to discuss, and we're going to look into that in regard to how we can ensure there's going to be water when we need it. But in the end, I'm going to defer that to DWP and whomever else controls the supply. I can guarantee you that when our firefighters showed up on that day with what they had, they did absolutely everything they could do to rescue and to save people's lives and property.
Listen, she's fire chief, but she also sounds like she's glossing and flossing like a true politician. And I think it's safe to say who she places the blame for this debacle on. And unfortunately, we are also now getting reports of looting going.
Real America's Voice is a news platform dedicated to keeping people informed.
Welcome to the Democrat-run cities of America. Yes, he killed her.
Headlines from here in the U.S. and around the globe.
The world is reliant on China, and that's just how China wants it.
I have no idea where you lost me, but the bottom line is that there are criminals who are going into these neighborhoods that have been evacuated. They are breaking into the empty homes and taking everything that they possibly can. Here was one woman's eyewitness account of that happening earlier today.
It was wild. We just started seeing all these cars pull up, doors open, and groups of men running up our street, going up to the doors of these houses. And we weren't sure what was going on. I'm thinking, are these people here to help my neighbors? I hope so. And I left, and then my husband talked to the police and said, what are those guys doing? These guys don't live here. Get them out. My next door neighbor said, his quote, there were like 100 people that came up on scooters and were trying to get into any and all houses on the street.
And did you physically see police officers stopping them?
I didn't, but it's not to say that they weren't. It was so incredibly chaotic, and I was so worried about my big family and getting them out of our old tinderbox of a house that I was just focused on them first.
Absolutely disgusting, and unfortunately all too common of an occurrence in America, especially blue cities during natural disasters. All right, I want to introduce my very first guest of the evening from Los Angeles, just like me, to discuss the devastating fires that are still raging here. Actor, producer, writer, and former candidate for LA City Council, Seaka Massa Seaka. Seaka, great to see you.
Hey, what's going on, Amanda? Good to see you too.
It's great to see you. It's been a while, but I wish that we weren't reuniting on this type of occasion. I want to ask you about the blame that is flying around. I know that Kristen Crowley, she claims that she has been asking for more resources, and she has cited some specific examples of ways that she has been limited and the men and women on her force have been limited. Do you think that ultimately the people of California, the people of Los Angeles, who overwhelmingly vote Democrat, are going to figure out that maybe there's a better way?
I mean, one can only pray that they do. It's I know that even from you to me and a lot of other people, you try to have conversations with people. You try to give them a different perspective, and you're given like the stiff arm, from football. And so I hate that something like this is what had to have happened, so that, the idea of making history all the time isn't what you're looking for. You're looking for making competency. And it just my heart aches for those who've just lost everything. But, it comes down to, we're a representative government. So if the people are going to elect individuals who don't have the merit, then it's at the same time, we gotta be more involved in our communities. We got to know what's going on. We can't just like turn a blind eye after we check a box. And I think, unfortunately, this may have something to do with that too. But it's like so sad to see people having to go through this in order just to go, all right, wait a minute, what have we been doing? My heart aches for them.
Yeah, same here. I remember, and I know you probably remember too, we were both living out here when this happened, when President Trump came out to California during his first term. And it was a very congenial visit between he and Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom was at the beginning of his gubernatorial term. And President Trump made a comment regarding the forest floors and how unkempt they were, and how that is, fodder for fire, literally. And liberals made fun of him. And I do wonder if some of those same liberals are looking back at this situation and saying maybe he was right. But at any rate, do you anticipate that going forward, some of those common sense measures, like making sure there's not a ton of brush on the forest floors, is something that they'll enact?
Well, I think they're going to have to. We live in an age right now where so many of us can find out the truth so much sooner than before. Unfortunately, not in this case, but we found out our eyes are now open to the problem. And so if the next person's coming in and they're not looking to address these problems that have just slapped people right in the face, people can't afford to think, kind of ethereally about this. You got to be, everything's now it happened. They lost their homes. It's like people are going to have to pay attention to who runs for office in their local community. Like, if you care about that, you've been in your community for 10, 15, 20 years, like, you get involved. Don't leave it to someone else. Because I remember I just saw a video with Gavin saying, "Hey, it's up to the locals." Like, they're leaving you hanging if you aren't going to be the one involved. So I think it's very important for us to. It's so terrible to see this happen, and it happened in a neighborhood like the Palisades. That's not where the tragedy happens in that way.
Right.
Again, I just pray for all those people, but like, we got to do something different. We have to do something different in LA. Like, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. And I mean, like you pointed out, those people in Pacific Palisades, they are typically spared from stuff like this. Well, and urban Los Angeles in general, because it's not the wilds of California. It's not the Central Valley or NorCal, where you can have vast spaces where there's a ton of brush and trees and things like that. I want to ask you about the blame that is being thrown around. I'm not one to revel in other people's misery, but to see the left eating their own in this type of situation, it it doesn't exactly make me unhappy, if I'm being completely honest. When it comes to blame falling at the feet of someone, I feel like Karen Bass bears a huge brunt of this.
Yes.
Granted, she's only been in office a short time, but between Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, and Kristen Crowley, the LA fire chief, do you anticipate that there's going to be a significant amount of infighting further, I guess?
I mean, I in that last clip that you showed, you could tell that she was trying to distance herself from, really throwing anyone else under the bus, but at the same time trying to uplift her firefighters, which, she so rightfully does. But you can tell when it starts to connect to the other side, it's like, I don't want to touch that button. But I mean, this isn't just an average scandal of corruption here. This is not an average thing. An entire village burned to the ground in America, 2025, in the 5th largest economy in the world. It blows one's mind to think, then what have people been doing, paying all these high taxes and going along with this agenda from your Karen Basses, where they're prioritizing who you decide to sleep with over your competency, or how light or dark your melanin is. People don't care what you look like when you come in and save them.
Yeah, that's the absolute truth.
It's like, this is where it just sucks, man. This is where we are. It sucks.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the prospect of arson, and during the first few days of these fires, I think that people were just focused on trying to contain them rather than focus on how it was started or who started it or whatever. But I'm starting to get an idea that this was not entirely natural disaster, because you've got the Hollywood Hills fire that happened up at Runyon Canyon, and I'm sure you've hiked Runyon Canyon as much as I have. There are not power lines up there. Yeah, there aren't power lines up there. And then I saw a viral video from Woodland Hill, or North Hills, of someone a presumed arsonist who there was like a citizen's arrest performed against him because he was carrying around containers of fuel. I am starting to be really concerned that that at least some of these fires were man-made. What's your sense about that?
They say where there's smoke, there's fire. And in this case, I think when you look at from anything from the homeless epidemic that we have in Los Angeles and California as a whole, some of that is, I've seen videos of people like just trying to stay warm at night because they have nowhere to go. Then you have these stories like what you're talking about. And it just, to me, goes to this wide open border of having all these military age men just around. And I'm not saying that it's just that, but it's like you can create more chaos when that is the environment that you invite, that you turn a blind eye to crime that is not even reported to the FBI till late, and it comes out late. Like we're literally putting people in danger. And I think it begs to ask the question at this point, why are they putting so many people in danger who are like paying so much to be in the most beautiful state in the country? Like it's heartbreaking.
I certainly hope that after this, those people who prioritize garbage like climate change measures over things like, water to put out fires in California, where you have a lot of fires, I hope that those people have second thoughts about their priorities. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Seaka Massaquoi, it was so great to see you, my friend. We'll have you back on again soon.
Thank you.
Likewise. Yeah. All right, everybody. Coming up after the break, Alan Dershowitz will be here to break down President Trump's sentencing in New York. And Alan says that he'll never call President Trump a convicted felon. He'll explain why next.
Hey, folks, the first 100 days of President Trump's new administration will shape the future of our nation. Will Washington deliver on the promises that matter most, like securing the border, restoring energy independence, and cutting wasteful spending? My friends at AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, are holding our leaders accountable with the first 100 days tracker. This powerful tool keeps you informed on the administration's progress, tracks key priorities, and empowers you to join the fight for a stronger America. And during these critical first 100 days, AMAC is offering an exclusive deal. Get a load of this. 47% off a 5-year membership. Normally $60. Now you can join for just $32. You can be a card-carrying member just like me. As an AMAC member, you're not just staying informed, you're unlocking valuable benefits like discounts on travel, insurance, and retail, and receiving America's #1 conservative magazine. Plus, you'll have a voice in Washington through AMAC Action. And you're also going to join a community that stands for conservative values and a brighter future. No matter your age, this is your moment to get involved, stay informed, stay engaged. How do you do that? Join AMAC today and help ensure promises are kept and America is restored. Visit amac.us/justnews now to join AMAC at this special rate and access the first 100 days tracker. That's amac.us/justnews to join AMAC at a 47% discount and become part of a movement that's making America great again.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. As you have no doubt heard by now, President Trump was sentenced in a New York courtroom this morning in what everybody has deemed a hush money case. It was technically a bookkeeping error, but at any rate, President Trump was sentenced to unconditional discharge. What that means, and as Alicia Keys saying, where do we go from here? I've got someone perfect to talk to us about this. He is one of our nation's most brilliant legal minds. He is Harvard Law Professor Emeritus and the subject of his latest biography, Legal Gladiator. Alan Dershowitz, you are a legal gladiator. Thanks so much for being here, sir.
Thank you so much. You know, this was a game today. What happened is Judge Marchant decided to outsmart the Supreme Court. So he announced in advance that he wouldn't send him to jail. I know of no judge in my 62 years of practice and writing who has ever announced in advance what he's going to sentence the person to. Generally, when I go to court with a criminal defendant, I tell him to bring his toothbrush because we don't know whether we're going home or whether he's going to prison. But this judge deliberately announced in advance that he wasn't going to sentence him in jail in order to get the Supreme Court not to take the case. And when the Supreme Court didn't take the case, what happened is they basically said, since he's not going to jail, we don't have to consider the case now. We can wait until the appeal comes up. If they didn't know whether he was going to jail or not, they might very well have taken the case. So what happened is Judge Marchant played a trick on the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court fell for it. It's part of the gamesmanship that's been part of the prosecution's armament since the beginning of this outrageous case that never, ever should have been brought. And you mentioned he was sentenced. He wasn't sentenced. You're not sentenced when the judge says, I hereby sentence you not to be sentenced. You are now sentenced. And the whole thing is a distortion of our legal system, and it's unique in the history of this country.
Yeah, that's a great point. So is it technically a non-sentence? What do we even classify it as?
Not a sentence, and he's not a convicted felon. I refuse to call him a convicted felon any more than I would call somebody convicted in the Soviet Union back in the 1950s or somebody convicted in Iran today a convicted felon. This was not a legitimate case. There is no crime. You can't be a convicted felon when you haven't been charged with a felony. He was charged with a misdemeanor that expired under the statute of limitations that they magically resurrected and tried to turn into a felony. But, you know, it won't work. It'll be reversed on appeal. This is just, as I think Jonathan Turley said on Fox News, conviction by soundbite, sentencing by soundbite. It's not a real sentence.
Yeah. And you mentioned the soundbite aspect of this, and that was something that was so glaring to me today because, you know, cameras were not allowed in the courtroom. So the American people were not able to hear both sides of the argument. And yet for this, Juan Merchan wanted the world to see and hear. What does it say about Juan Merchan in this case in general? To me, it smacks of partisanship and hackery. Does it to you?
Yeah. And the worst is CNN. They sat there and lied to their audience. They had a woman on the show today who said, I was in the courtroom every day and Judge Marchant acted perfectly. His demeanor was absolutely perfect, judicial demeanor. Well, I was in the courtroom and I saw him turn to a distinguished lawyer and scream at him and say, essentially, are you looking at me? Are you giving me a glare? I mean, he acted with such incredibly bad judicial manner, but CNN can get away with deliberately lying because the trial wasn't on television. I was in the courtroom. I saw with my own eyes the judicial lack of credibility that Judge Marchand had. And yet CNN could lie to the public and say, well, we were in the courtroom every day and he acted this way and that way. Show it on television. And then we, the American public, can judge for ourselves. We don't have to believe the liars at CNN. And that's the problem of selectively deciding what you allow the public to hear. They allowed him to hear the judge. The judge knew he was being heard. So, of course, he was on his best behavior. But when he knew he wasn't being heard and he was just being observed by a few people, 35 people in the courtroom, he could behave like an absolute judicial tyrant, which he did the day I was in the courtroom.
Yeah, and to me, it was also infantile. I grew up with two older brothers, and I remember how we treated each other and how we behaved in front of our parents. And then when our parents weren't around, it was quite a different story. And it seems to me that that's his maneuvering. I want to ask you about what the appeals process is going to look like henceforth. Good chance of it getting overturned?
Very good chance. It should be overturned without a doubt. And the fact that 4 justices would have stopped the sentencing indicates that there are enough justices to grant review. In order to get review in the Supreme Court, you need 4 votes, not 5. You need 5 to reverse the conviction, but 4 to take the case. And so I think Trump is virtually assured that if he loses in the New York courts, which he may well do, he will at least get a review in the Supreme Court. And I can't believe the Supreme Court would uphold this travesty of injustice.
Alan, what did you make of what President Trump said in the courtroom? I found it to be extremely measured and pragmatic and responsible. And a lot of the points that he made, I think, probably rang true with the American people. What did you think of it?
Completely agreed. I appreciated the fact that he included me among the scholars. He told the judge, had said that this was not a strong case. I had said this from even before the trial. And many other legal scholars have joined, not the Larry Tribes of the world, because they'll find anything against Trump to be completely justified. But even some people on CNN, Ellie Honig and a few others, agreed that this trial was a travesty. And it's bad not only for Trump, not only for the presidency, but it really encourages people like Alvin Bragg to make up cases. He made up a case. There is no criminal case here. I mean, it wasn't even a misdemeanor. And then he turned what was not a misdemeanor into a fake felony. It just, I've been doing this 62 years. I've never quite seen anything like this. And I think the higher courts will see through this.
Alan, yesterday I spoke to one of President Trump's attorneys on one of his other cases, Jesse Banal, and we had a pretty lengthy conversation about what has happened to the legal industry as a whole. And of course, we talked about you and basically coining the term Dershowitz with what can happen to attorneys if you really are just judicious and follow the Constitution, because you have not necessarily supported President Trump as a person. It has been supporting the law. And we talked about what the remedy for this would be. And, in this instance, you've got Alvin Bragg, the DA, in the case. And he mentioned something that the American people can do, people who are outside the justice system. And he mentioned actually petitioning these DAs and calling up these DA offices and voicing to them the opinion that while they do have prosecutorial discretion, they shouldn't be wielding it against their political opponents. Is that something you think can be effective? Is that a call to action?
Yes, it is. And by the way, that Bragg has total and complete categorical immunity. The very same people that complain about the Supreme Court giving the President of the United States immunity support giving Alvin Bragg immunity, support giving Judge Marchand immunity, support giving bar associations in some instances immunity. They've been part of the problem, not part of the solution. There's this Project 65 that has gone after every lawyer who defended Trump, including me. They filed a bar charge against me in Massachusetts that hasn't been acted on. But, it cost me money to hire a lawyer. Their goal is to deter anybody from defending Donald Trump. Imagine if that were in the South and there were a bar association that was going after every civil rights lawyer who defended civil rights workers and black people in the South. We'd all be up in arms. We should be equally up in arms against the 65 Project and other efforts by the Justice Department, the DA in New York, to discourage lawyers from involving themselves, and the DAs in Arizona and Georgia who are going after lawyers. It's just It's an attack on our legal system. And, you know, today the prosecutor had the chutzpah to accuse Trump of hurting our legal system. He had to look in the mirror. He was doing much more to hurt our legal system than anything that he could possibly accuse Donald Trump of doing. But, you know, we live in such a partisan world that less than half the world, fortunately, it's less than half the world, agrees with Bragg and agrees with CNN and agrees with Project 65. Anything to get Trump is justified. That's why I wrote my book called Get Trump. It wasn't my title. It was a title originated by Bragg and by Letitia James and all the others who were absolutely out to get Trump. And they failed. Trump got reelected.
Absolutely. And I encourage everyone to go out and get that book, Get Trump, because it was such a wise take on what was happening at the time and also quite predictive. So, Alan, you certainly have a talent for the tea reading. Thank you so much for being here, sir. And everybody also go out and check out Legal Gladiator. It is a comprehensive and really intimate view of Alan and his life and all of his many, many achievements and shows a personal side of him from his upbringing. It's really wonderful. Everybody, we're going to take a very quick break and we'll be back on the other side.
Hey folks, are you tired of getting taken by all those weight loss products claiming that you'll never have to exercise or you can lose 50 pounds in a month with no effort? Well, you don't need to worry about getting scammed anymore with Lean. Here's why I trust that Lean is the real deal. Lean was created by a medical doctor and university researcher. The clinical team behind Lean says if you only have a few pounds to lose, non-prescription Lean is not for you. All you need to do is exercise a little bit more. Lean is for frustrated dieters who want to lose meaningful weight and aren't into injections. Yeah, those work, but can carry side effects, right? Shots work in part by lowering blood sugar and regulating appetite. The science behind Lean is impressive. Its natural, studied ingredients target weight loss in similar ways. First, Lean helps maintain healthy blood sugar. It also helps control appetite and cravings and helps burn fat by converting fat to energy. If you're ready to lose some weight like I am, a smarter way, let me get you started with my personal discount. Just use the code JUSTNEWS20. That's JUSTNEWS20 at TakeLean.com. That's JUSTNEWS20, TakeLean.com.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. It was a big day for judicial rulings yesterday. First, New York ruled that President Trump's sentencing had to move forward, and then the Supreme Court refused to order a stay of that sentencing, which took place this morning. But lost in all of that judicial shuffle was a federal judge striking down the Biden administration's Title IX rewrite. So how big of a deal was that? It was pretty big. But with me to discuss, Special Projects Ambassador for the Riley Gaines Center at the Leadership Institute. She is also a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, where she was a member of the women's swimming and diving team alongside William Leah Thomas. Paula Scanlon. Paula, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Paula, I know this is something that you and everyone at Riley Gaines and at Leadership Institute and pretty much all the conservative think tanks across this country were keeping a very, very close eye on. How big of a deal is it?
I mean, it's a great win for us. It sets the precedent that enough is enough. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. But what I say to a lot of people is the fact that we even have to have a federal judge rule on something as crazy as this, saying men should not compete in women's sports and use women's bathrooms and be in women's locker rooms, is just telling to how far the left has gone on this issue.
How big of a role do you think this played in the election? Because we've been inching this direction for a while, moving towards wokeism, moving towards, muddying up the definition of male and female. We even saw it with Ketanji Brown Jackson when she was asked if Senator Marsha Blackburn asked her if she could define woman, and she obviously couldn't. And it feels like we've been moving in this direction for a while, but it also felt like this November, that was when the American people said, okay, this garbage is out, enough is enough, we're done with this. How big of a deal do you think it was playing into the election?
Absolutely. I think it was honestly one of the most important issues. And I can say this only because I had so many friends and family members that had previously voted for Joe Biden and had been lifelong Democrats, called me up on the phone and they said, you know what, Paula? enough is enough. I have to vote for Trump because this is crazy. If we don't know what a woman is, what do we say about everything else? None of the other policies really matter. And also, in the Trump policy platform, keeping men out of women's sports was listed there. That's something we've never seen before. In 2020, this issue certainly was never even brought up a single time. But this recently, it was on the policy platform. And additionally, every single Trump rally that I attended, and there was several that I went to, someone brought it up, whether it was Trump himself or one of the other speakers. This issue was brought up. So I think it shows, again, the how upset people were with it, and also how well it worked to mobilize voters and eventually win Trump the election.
How did we get to the place, Paula, where the left, who claims to be the party of inclusion, they claim to be the party of minority rights, of the disenfranchised, of women's rights, how did they move so far in the wrong direction that they no longer, I mean, they clearly don't care about women's rights, because you have women competing against biological men who still have all of their junk intact. They still have all of their metabolic and aerobic abilities. How on earth did the left arrive at this place?
Honestly, I wish I had answers, but unfortunately, when you have nothing to stand for and you just keep on going, and all these different special interest groups with, you know, a really small minority group of the population step in and say, I need to be included, I demand that my mental health condition is what you stand for, that's how we get to where we are. And honestly, it is really sad to see how, again, this small, mentally unwell population has been able to just tirade and take over and lose them elections. I mean, this is a wildly unpopular issue. There are people who are leftists on everything else and say, hey, this has gone too far. Enough is enough. And so this is what happens when you let the small fringe part of your party take over and set the policies.
Paula, how many injuries, how many head injuries, how many instances of traumatic brain injury, concussions, broken limbs, how many of those cases have to take place? And not just at the collegiate level, we saw it in the Paris Olympics in the boxing arena. How many of those have to happen? How many of these catastrophes have to happen? How many women have to become victims for the left to finally experience a little bit of circumspect and think to themselves, okay, maybe we did go a little too far on this?
I mean, I would have thought that one would have been enough. When I heard the story of Peyton McNabb, the high school volleyball player, she's actually a good friend of mine, male volleyball player on the opposing team, knocked the ball into her head, knocked her unconscious, and she has permanent injuries, is not able to play sports, and is partially paralyzed on one side of her face. Crazy. Can anyone look at that and say enough is enough? But no, that was not enough for them, and this continues to happen. And I don't know what it will take for them. But unfortunately, I think that even if they do wake up and realize that they've done the wrong thing, they're still going to die on that hill, because admitting that they were wrong is too much for them.
Yeah, I hear so many people say, well, maybe there's a little bit of room for allowing this when it's not a contact sport. Volleyball's not a contact sport, and look at what happened to your friend.
Exactly. It's not safe. It's not fair. And honestly, it's just not acceptable. And the fact that we're even having this conversation is honest. I can't even wrap my head around it. That's what I keep saying to people. The fact that I have to get on here and even defend it. The fact that the judges who have gone to law school and spent their time to become federal judges have to sit and listen to this. I mean, what? There's so many more important court cases that they could be hearing. There's so many more things they could be ruling on and laws they can be interpreting. But we have to sit them down and say, hey, can you just check this out and say, is it okay for a man to say he identifies as a woman? Wild, madness. And I'm just glad that this ruled in our favor and sanity is coming back to this country.
Sanity certainly is back in style. I know it's like up is down and down is up and right is wrong and wrong is right. But thankfully, I think the guy who is going to be taking over the White House is going to have a little bit to do with returning to sanity. Paula Scanlon, Special Projects Ambassador for the Riley Gaines Center at the Leadership Institute. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. All right, everybody, coming up, a huge statue of President Trump is in the works. I guess I should say huge. Where and when can you see it? I'm going to talk to the leader of that project next. Welcome back to Just the News and No Noise. President Trump is about to be honored in a big way with a huge bronze statue immortalizing his reaction after his Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt. And with me now to discuss that effort, the project lead of the Patriot statue of President Donald J. Trump, Dustin Stockton. Dustin, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
Good to see you. All right. So first of all, just describe to me this statue. Describe for our audience what this thing is going to look like, how big it's going to be.
Well, people say, Amanda, that this might be the largest statue of all time. It really, though, amazing. It is 2 stories tall. It is made of bronze, and it's Trump in the most iconic moment of courage, I think, in history. Fist up in the air in such a big way. I got the final pictures today. So the picture you're showing there, you can still see some of the weld marks from when they welded all of the different bronze pieces together. Those are normal size humans in that picture. Those are not like elves at the North Pole or something to make the statue look bigger. It really is that ginormous. And it's completely shined up and ready to go. And I think Trump's going to love it. And I know the people are going to love it. And now it's just a matter of getting it to Washington, D.C. and getting it to the president and getting it to the people.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll meet you there, by the way. I know the last time we spoke, I told you I didn't think I was going to the inauguration. I am going to be covering it. So I'll be there on the ground. Tell everybody, I know that you're going to have it there. And I certainly hope that President Trump is going to go take a gander at it, because that's going to be the most priceless photo opportunity of the entire century. Tell us about where it's going to be if people are there on the ground and they want to see it.
All right. So I don't know that I'm fully at liberty to say exactly where it's going to roll out. So
But people don't need to buy tickets or anything, right?
No, they're not going to need tickets. What I would say is go to the rally would be my suggestion to people, just saying. And then also, I got some exciting news today. We're holding the Patriot Awards at the National Press Club on the 18th, which is Saturday. And we have
Wonderful.
like 18-inch miniatures. And just got word that my long-term mentor, Steve Bannon, will be broadcasting War Room there from the Patriot Awards. And Amanda, we'd love to have you come since you're going to be in town.
Awesome. That is beautiful. Okay, I want to start with the origin story, because it was just July 13th that this happened, that President Trump was shot in the head and almost assassinated. And thank goodness, by the grace of God and the angels protecting him, he was not killed. But I got to admit, that's a pretty short turnaround for something that is, as you say, 2 stories high. This thing is made of bronze. Talk to us about how this started. Was there already a plan to make a statue of President Trump, and then this happened and that was the decision for the design? How did this start?
Well, so there was a big group of us crypto people who were very interested in making sure that we found a way to honor President Trump. This was before the assassination attempt, and really around when President Trump started to embrace Bitcoin and then crypto more broadly, calling him, right, like promising to be the crypto president. The Biden administration had waged war against our industry for 4 years. And we wanted to make sure that we honored the fact that we had somebody. And then when the assassination attempt happened and we got that iconic just picture of Trump telling us to fight, it was a no-brainer that that's what done. Some of the team had previously done a statue around another crypto project called Elon Goat, which was like Elon's face on a goat. And so we actually had some experience already with some statue making, and we decided that there was only one way to really do this. You had to go big. If you were going to honor somebody as larger than life as Donald Trump, in that moment, there was no life size. There was no doing it in aluminum or some other cast. It had to be bronze because bronze lasts forever, and it had to be massive. So we went with the 2 stories, and then we commissioned Alan Cotrill, who's done a bunch of really incredible statues, probably most notably the Edison statue in Statutory Hall. And he's done hundreds of statues that are shown all over the world. It's a great one of Teddy Roosevelt. And as soon as basically within days of the assassination attempt, we had reached out to Alan and had him start working on it. This is long before the crypto token had launched months later. And really it was a bunch of like people who had done well in crypto who decided that like, you know what, we're going to do this statue and we're going to do it to make history, and we'll take care of the rest of the pieces later. I personally went around for the last couple months of the campaign with a bunch of the RFK people and the Maha crew, and went to a bunch of rallies where I would show pictures of the design and what we were hoping to do. And the response we got was just so next level. The desire for people. We've been in this weird place where for like a generation, instead of putting statues up that like memorialize the important like turning points in our world, we've been tearing statues down and trying to erase history. I think this gets us back to a really good place of, you know what, like when these wild moments that change the course of history happen, we should commemorate them, and we should do it in awesome, bigly, super ways that people are going to be excited to come be able to see.
Dustin, I cannot wait to see this statue. You have done such a great job as project manager, pulling it all together and seeing it come to fruition. So thank you so much for that, Dustin Stockton. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Amanda. Hope to see you at the Patriot Awards.
Indeed, indeed. We'll connect there for sure. All right, everybody, after the break, Moms for America founder Kimberly Fletcher is going to be here to discuss what that organization is doing to get President Trump's nominees across the finish line. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final segment of the evening, and we have saved the best for last because the group Moms for America has provided some of President Trump's nominees with a big boost. With me to talk all about that is the founder and president of Moms for America, Kimberly Fletcher. Kimberly, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here. Great to see you.
Absolutely my pleasure.
So ever since President Trump was elected in November, he has started to roll out these nominees, and some of them have not really had a lot of chatter surrounding them, and some of them, oh boy, Democrats' hair has been on fire, smoke is coming out their ears, namely with Kash Patel, with RFK Jr., Pete Buttigieg, Tulsi Gabbard, some of these that in my opinion are some of the best nominees because they are change makers and they are looking to perform an upheave on Washington, D.C. Tell us about what was in this letter.
Well, change makers is exactly what we wanted. And so when we elected President Trump, we worked very, very hard to get him elected so that these kinds of changes would happen. You cannot put America back on track unless you have some solid, strong cabinet picks. And he has picked some good ones. So, of course, the left who's trying to destroy this country, hold back on everything that we want to push forward. And so Moms for America has sent a very strong, respectful letter to the members of the Senate, letting them know that we support the nominations, and particularly addressing the fact that these four nominees are exactly what America needs right now to be able to handle the issues that we have, especially going after parents, mothers, for protecting their children, making sure that our national security is something that we can count on. The Department of Defense, I mean, who better to lead the Department of Defense than Pete Hegseth? These are really great picks. And Kash Patel is exactly what we need in the DOJ to be able to put things back right. Moms don't trust the FBI. They've been banging down our doors, but most of the people at the FBI are good, decent people. And Kash will be able to go in and clean out the house so that we have good, solid representatives in that organization.
Yeah. And, you know, Kimberly, what I love so much about these nominees before they have even been confirmed is the fact that particularly with respect to Kash Patel at the FBI and Pete Buttigieg at the Pentagon, you're hearing all of these salacious stories about, oh, all of these people are jumping ship at the FBI and, you know, a storied institution and people with reputable careers, and then 3- and 4-star generals at the Pentagon, they're jumping ship. And I'm sitting here thinking, Okay, then if they don't align with, number one, President Trump's agenda, and number two, the people who President Trump has tasked with carrying out his agenda in those institutions, fine, bye.
They're just saving us time. We actually,
Absolutely.
That's very helpful. The more of
saving
them
us the pink paper.
That's right. They see the writing on the wall and they're getting out. And that's just going to save us a lot of time. There are other great picks. Linda McMahon, the Department of Education. When President Trump ran, he made more promises. And the promises that he made when he ran served the first 4 years, he kept every one. So when he said he was going to dismantle the Department of Education, we couldn't be more excited. So Linda McMahon can go in there and help tear that thing down. And every single one of these people that are coming in is the reason why the radical left, the Democrat Party that's become the radical left, are so opposed to some of these nominees, because they know the strength that they're going to bring. They know they're going to expose all the corruption that has been happening within these departments, and they don't want them cleaned up. So we want to make sure that the senators realize that the American people very clearly made a statement. Not only did President Trump win the election, he won the popular vote. And if you look and see where he won the popular vote, it's all along the coast of California. So you better pay attention to the American people, because this was our voice. And we want these nominees to get through, and we want them through by the time he's ready to start on day one.
Absolutely. Kimberly, I want to ask you a bit of an insider baseball question, because I have my own anecdotes as far as how many people I know who aren't even parents who decided to cross over and vote for President Trump this time around. But I got a text, and I've told this story on air, so my audience is probably sick of hearing it. But one person in particular who is a Democrat, lifelong liberal, and she texted me after the election and said, I just wasn't okay with my 15-year-old junior Olympian daughter being in a locker room with a man, and she voted for Donald Trump. Your organization is made up of hundreds of thousands of moms in this country. I imagine you've heard stories like that quite a few times.
Great deal. And I have to tell you that one of the main reasons we won is because the radical left went so radical left. And when they started to try and convince our children that they weren't who they were, and used the government money to bribe and blackmail schools into setting up these counselors who would convince these children that they are not who they are. This whole radical transgender issue, it won across the board. Parents are not happy about that. It didn't matter what color you were, what religion you were, what age you were, what political persuasion you were. We had an awful lot of Democrats, especially in the Hispanic and Black community, women, moms, who moved from voting Democrat to voting Republican. And they did that because they wanted to protect their children. So we have moms who have children who are voting that way, and we have children who have been disgusted by this. I mean, we hear from the kids of these parents, and we're asking them, are your children ready to talk about this? 15, 16, 17-year-olds who are like, this started when we were 12 and 13, and they're ready to talk. And this issue is going to be turned on its head. And we are grateful to have a cabinet and a president who are ready to fight with us instead of against us.
Those are four of my favorite words in journalism. I'm ready to talk. There's always good stuff that comes after that. I want to ask you, we've only got about 60 seconds left, but heading into this administration, what are some of the first things you want to see President Trump accomplish?
Dismantling the Department of Education. I mean, that's really it. Dismantle the Department of Education. I'm very excited about America 250 because this gives us an opportunity to look forward for something, to have a resurgence of American patriotism. And we are definitely going to be working right along the president and the cabinet and all the administration and making sure that every level, the American people understand what America's about, why it's worth fighting for. And that's what we're going to keep doing, fighting for America.
Yeah. I know you're going to keep coordinating with him, and I know he values your support and your wisdom. Tell everybody where they can find out more about Moms for America.
Absolutely. Just come to momsforamerica.us. You will connect, and we'd love to have you.
Founder and president of that organization, Moms for America, Kimberly Fletcher. Thanks so much for being with me here tonight, and have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right, everybody, that's all the time we have for tonight's show, but I would just implore all of you to pray for us out here in Los Angeles. The fires seemed, just a bit of an update, I just saw a text alert. The fires in Pacific Palisades are still about the same. The Eaton fire is still the same, but they haven't gotten larger. In the last few days, we have seen them grow and expand. So it's a good thing that at least for now, They are somewhat mitigated, but pray for us all. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. There are some snow showers across the country, so everybody stay safe and stay warm. Grant Stinchfield is going to take you through the next hour, and I will see you again on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern right here